The weight of small things. Maya Patel was 29 years old when she realized she was unraveling, not in some dramatic cinematic way where everything breaks in a single night, but in the slow, grinding, almost invisible way modern life consumes you until there's nothing left but a thin shell moving through the motions. She woke each day before her alarm, her mind already buzzing with unread emails, unfinished projects, the weight of being useful. She scrolled her phone in the dark, answering work texts before her feet touched the floor. Coffee was no longer a pleasure. It was an IV drip for survival. Lunch breaks blurred into meetings. She worked late, carried her laptop home, answered messages at midnight, and on the rare mornings she caught her reflection in the mirror, she sometimes startled at how hollow her own eyes looked, like a stranger's. Her friends had stopped inviting her out. She always said no anyway. Her last relationship had ended not with an explosion but with silence. Two people too tired to even fight. She wasn't devastated. She wasn't happy either. She wasn't anything. That was the worst part. Not sadness. Not anger. Just nothing. Until the panic attack. It came on a Tuesday. Tuesdays were always cruel. Just far enough from Monday's adrenaline, and still too far from Friday's mercy. She'd spilled coffee on her blouse that morning. Missed the train. Arrived late. To a meeting where her manager eyed her like a disappointment. By the time she sat down at her desk, her chest had begun to tighten, each breath jagged, shallow. Her hands trembled. The numbers on her screen blurred. Her throat refused air. Not again. She'd had 2 panic attacks already that month, both brushed off with excuses about low blood sugar, but this one hit harder. A wave of suffocation that made her feel like she was drowning in the middle of an open-plan office while no one noticed. She mumbled something to her manager, grabbed her bag, and fled. Her heels scraped against the pavement as she stumbled outside, desperate for air. Across the street was a park, small and unremarkable, wedged between 2 glass towers. She collapsed onto a bench like a body washing up on shore. The city roared around her. Car horns, footsteps, snippets of phone calls. But inside her chest was silence, the terrifying silence of her body refusing to breathe. "Breathe," a voice said. Maya's head snapped up. At the other end of the bench sat an old man with a worn paperback balanced on his knee. His hair was silver, his skin a roadmap of wrinkles, but his eyes were startlingly sharp. "Excuse me," Maya rasped. He set down his book, met her panicked gaze, and inhaled deeply. "In through your nose," he said calmly, "out through your mouth. Like the world won't move until you do." It was absurd, but in her desperation she tried. Her first inhale was jagged, a gasp. The exhale broke into a cough. The second was shaky. The third was less so. Slowly, rhythmically, she followed his example. Minutes passed. The vice around her chest loosened. Air returned. The world tilted back into place. Only then did he speak again. "You carry too much weight." Maya's throat tightened. "You don't even know me." He gave a faint smile, the kind that wasn't unkind. "I don't have to." I recognized the look. People breaking under loads they don't dare set down. The words slid under her defenses, finding the cracks she worked so hard to hide. "I don't know how to stop," she admitted, barely a whisper. "You don't stop," he said. "You learn what to put down, one small thing at a time." She stared at him, waiting for more, but he picked up his book, stood, and tucked it under his arm. "Don't forget," he said, and walked away, leaving her on the bench with his words echoing like a secret. That night, Maya didn't open her laptop after dinner. Instead, she dug out an old notebook from college. Its first pages were filled with half-finished poems, doodles of flowers, pieces of who she used to be. On a blank page, she wrote, "What can I put down today?" Her pen hovered. Then, slowly, she wrote, "The need to answer every email immediately." It felt childish, insignificant, but it also felt lighter. The next morning, she resisted the urge to check her phone in bed. Instead, she opened the window, let the morning air rush in, and just stood there, watching the city wake. Buses hissed. A couple argued playfully on the sidewalk. Somewhere a dog barked. She sipped her coffee slowly without rushing. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was different. And different was enough. Days turned into weeks. The changes were almost invisible, at least to anyone else. She took short walks on her lunch break instead of eating at her desk. She bought herself flowers from a street vendor, bright yellow tulips that made her apartment feel less like a storage unit. She started calling her mother once a week, just to hear a voice that wasn't tied to work. Some days she still drowned. She still cried in the shower, still woke at 3 a.m. with her chest caving in, still compared herself to strangers on Instagram who seemed to be living brighter, better lives. But on those nights, she whispered to herself, put some of it down, and sometimes she managed. 2 months later, she saw the old man again, same park, same bench. "You," she said, before she could stop herself. He looked up from his book, surprised. Then recognition softened his face. "You remembered." She hesitated, embarrassed. "I wrote it down, what you said, about putting things down." He chuckled softly. "And has it helped?" Maya thought of the tulips on her kitchen table, the morning coffee by the open window, the way her chest didn't feel quite as crushed as before. "A little. That's all it ever is," he said. "A little." For a moment they sat in silence. Then Maya asked, "Why did you tell me that? You didn't even know me." His gaze drifted somewhere distant. "Because someone once said it to me. She studied him, sensing a story there, but unsure if it was hers to ask for. His silence was lined with grief, the kind that never really fades. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. My wife used to carry everything. Work, family, my stubborn pride. She broke under it. I learned too late how much weight she held. I would have given anything to take some of it from her. Maya's throat closed. I'm sorry, he nodded, eyes glinting. So when I see people like you, I try to pass the lesson on. It's the only way I know how to keep her here. For a long moment, Maya sat frozen, her own burden suddenly sharpened by his loss. She wanted to say something meaningful, something to thank him, but all she managed was, "You helped me more than you know." He gave her a small smile, one lined with both sorrow and kindness. Good, then she helped you too. From that day, Maya looked differently at the world. She noticed the small kindnesses, the stranger holding the elevator door, the barista remembering her order, the coworker who wordlessly slid a cookie onto her desk after a brutal meeting. They weren't grand gestures, but they mattered. And slowly, she began returning them. She helped a neighbor carry groceries up the stairs. She texted a friend she hadn't spoken to in months. She picked up coffee for the intern who always looked terrified in meetings. Each act was tiny, but each one tethered her more firmly to the world she thought she was losing. Of course, not everything was tidy. There were still nights when she collapsed into bed hollow, days when her chest clenched with panic, mornings when she forgot every lesson, and drowned in work until her eyes burned. But she no longer mistook those days for failure. They were part of it. Healing wasn't linear, and maybe it wasn't about being free of the weight. Maybe it was just about learning how to set some of it down long enough to breathe. A year later, Maya returned to the park on purpose. The bench was empty this time. She didn't know if she would ever see the old man again, but she sat down anyway, notebook in hand. On the first page, her messy scrawl still asked, "What can I put down today?" She flipped through the filled pages, tracing the journey of her own handwriting. Some entries were trivial. The pressure to look perfect on Instagram. Others cut deep. The shame of not being where I thought I'd be by now. Each line was a weight she'd learned to set down, even if only temporarily. As she sat there, a young woman rushed past, tears streaking her face. Phone clutched like a lifeline. For just a second their eyes met. Maya smiled at her. Soft, steady, the same way the old man once smiled at her. The woman blinked, startled. Then, hesitantly, she smiled back, and just like that, she was gone, swallowed by the city. Maya exhaled, her chest both heavy and light. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't a cure. The weight was still there. It always would be. But for the first time, she didn't feel like she was disappearing under it. She felt human, flawed, scarred, still carrying more than she should, and still breathing anyway. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and a comment of what you thought of the story, and don't forget to subscribe. I greatly appreciate it.